Price is only one of many things that you should consider when you have an offer on your home. So let's talk it out. Hey there, I'm Christy Henshaw. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I love coming here to talk with you about real estate and design. Would love for you to like or subscribe or even go to my website and check out information there. You're also welcome to hit my stand store. If you're an agent, there are items for sale there, such as a listing guide, which is wonderful for your presentations when you're meeting with clients. And there's also a buyer guide. I've got a few other items on there as well. I'll plug that in. But let's get started. This video is talking about offers and other things to consider than just price. If you're a seller, you may have multiple offers, you may have one offer, but here are other items to think about. The first one I'll mention is contingencies. So a lot of buyers are already going to have a finance contingency with their contract. And that's just something that happens. Most people don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cash lying around where they can just run out and buy a property. So most people that you're dealing with as buyers, they are going to have that finance contingency. So a lot of times people put in an offer and they've got other contingencies along with their financing contingency. They may have the fact that they need to sell their own home first. So if they pop that contingency in the contract already, that's going to as a buyer, make the offer not look as good, because there could be another offer that is there where there is no contingency where you need to sell your house. So that's something to think about. Just other types of contingencies when an offer comes in. Look at all the contingencies, not just the financing contingency. There can even be, some offers may want a home warranty and they want the seller to pay for it. Some offers may say, hey, that's no big deal. So they take away that contingency. Those are just things that you should think about. It's really, really important that you read the contract line by line. There are lots of dates to consider, and usually if you've got a good real estate agent, they're going to be taking care of all those dates and making sure you are on time with everything with regard to the contract. But just to kind of know and learn more about what's in the contract and all the different contingencies there, just look through it and read it line by line, kind of get to know it a little bit. So I'm talking about the financing contingency. If you've got an offer that comes through and it's all cash, that is better, in my opinion, than a financing contingency. Number one, you can usually close pretty quickly and just be done with it all. Because if you're the seller and you own a house and, I'm in Texas, tornado could come through and you're in the middle of a transaction getting ready to close, a tornado comes through, your house is gone. So the quicker you can close, the better. That's something to consider, and a cash offer definitely allows that. So another thing with cash offers is you do not have to worry about them having a lender that needs to approve a loan, or a lender that needs to schedule an appraiser to come out to make sure that the value's right on the house. If you're an all cash, if you've got an offer there that is all cash, the buyer is willing to pay what they're willing to pay, and they've got the cash to do it. Now, if you're with a good agent, they're going to check the proof of funds. They're going to make sure the money's really there. They're going to do some calling, to the banks. So the moral of the story is, if you've got an all cash buyer, that's usually a really, really good thing. So definitely check that out well. Now let's talk about if your buyer has a lender involved, they're going to usually send over with their offer a pre-approval letter or a pre-qualification letter, which we also call a pre-qual letter. And there is a difference most of the time between those two. So usually a pre-qual letter means that the buyer has just kind of given their information. A lot of times they'll just do it online, and a company will turn out some automatic letter that says you're approved for this much money based on the information that you've told us. A pre-approval, on the other hand, a pre-approval letter means they've already gotten with a lender. The lender has already started checking out their paperwork. they've turned in their W-2s, they've turned in, the financial things that the lender is needing. They've started the process. And so they have been approved up to a certain amount based on factual data, not just based on what they said. And, I've gotten some letters as a listing agent from buyers when offers have come through, and it'll say pre-qualification letter at the top. If you're a seller, your agent should be calling those lenders and verifying, is this approval real? First off, because I have actually called a lender and they didn't know who I was talking about. I've had that happen before. And I've learned that, I don't know if it just is varied by location, but some lenders will call their approval letter, they'll still call it a pre-qualification letter, but I'll call to verify, and the lender will say, well, yes, we have already started that process. I don't know why my bank does this, but we just call it a pre-qual. And so it's just important that your agent is kind of checking those things for you. And a pre-approval letter typically is better than a pre-qualification, but your agent should be able to verify that. Next up, let's talk about loan type. Conventional, if someone's needing to do financing, if a buyer's needing to do that, a conventional loan is usually the easiest. It's less complicated than other types. There aren't as many hoops to jump through. For instance, like with an FHA loan, a lot of times it can delay closing, or it can cause more negotiations to happen. It can cause delays because an FHA is going to have their own requirements for repairs and approvals. And so I've had an instance with one of my listings where we had a first-time buyer come with an FHA, which, another thing, being a first-time buyer, it's an FHA loan is really beneficial for a first-time buyer because they're not having to put as much money down. So if you aren't getting offers with conventional loans and you have to go, or even you want to go with someone who has an FHA loan, just know that this FHA program is probably going to require specific repairs that you may not have already agreed to in the option period, and all of that can be negotiated as well. And so for my instance, we had already agreed on repairs. FHA came in and said, well, you got to do these other things. And so we just went back and renegotiated the repairs. Another thing to consider is the closing timeline. So think about what your needs are as a seller. Are you wanting to close pretty quickly? Do you need to get out of your house quickly? You've got a move coming up that you need to be out. Or are you not ready? You're not ready to leave. Maybe the kids need to finish school. You need more time. You didn't realize your house was going to sell as quickly as it did. And so thinking about the offers that come in and when they're willing to close, that is another thing to consider. And it's also part of the negotiation process. One offer could come in and say, well, we want to close in 30 days. And you say, well, okay, you can close in 30 days, but I'm not ready to get out. My kid needs to finish school. I need an extra 30, and then you can work out a lease back. There are things you can do to negotiate closing time as well, but that is another factor to consider in addition to price. If your home needs some major repairs and you don't have the time or the money to deal with it, you don't want to deal with it, well, then an offer that comes in where the buyer does not have a lot of repair requests, or they don't really care, they just want to be in the location where you're at and they'll take care of everything. Those are things to think about. Look at the repair numbers. Are they expecting you to do it, or are they willing to take it on themselves? Something to think about. And lastly, we're coming back around to offer price. So if you've got an offer that comes in and is really, really high, it gets you all excited. And you're like, yes, that's the one I want to take. And then you go through and you think about all these other things to consider. One thing to think about is that if your closing costs are higher, with that really high price, or they're requiring a lot of repairs with the really high offer, just just know that it may not be the better offer just because it has a higher price. You have to factor in all these other things. What sort of contingencies do they have? What, when are they willing to close? What are the closing costs? How's that going to be impacted? Who's covering what? And then repairs, again, are there major things that they're requesting? You have to do this, you need to do this, or are they being pretty laid back about it? So highest price is not always the best price, because there can be other things that actually factor in and lower it or make it not as appealing. So that's it with regard to offers. So sellers, I hope you learned something. Buyers, this is for you too, because you can kind of rewatch and kind of think of it from the buy side. Like when you're putting in an offer, these are things you need to consider as well. So again, like and comment. It really helps push this content out, and I really appreciate your help with that. Please check out my website. I have more seller tips on there. I've got buyer tips and other things that you can check out as well. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you next time.